Peace and freedom. Nini, welcome. I'm Reverend Dr. Queen Mother Imakhu. It's my pleasure to be with you here on another night as we learn more about how ancient Kemetic culture can motivate you to success today on Shenu Living. Shenu Living is a podcast that's produced by my multimedia company, Akeru Multimedia. I hope you all had a great day. Do you know it took me like a half an hour to find where I put this TV control? And that's only a big deal because of the fact that I have my music on the TV. I hope you all had a wonderful day. I had a great, very busy, super busy day. I feel good because I figured some things out here on this new formatting that they have for Waya Blue. How are you? Peace and blessings. Okay, so I can see y'all tonight. The other night, they didn't let me see you. Yet, the last one that I did had the most views wow, it was like the top one of all the ones I've done lately. And I found that to be very interesting. I don't know if it's because of the topic. I don't know if it's because of the amount of shares. I think that also they play around with a lot of stuff, personally speaking. But please share that I'm on the air. Please click like and subscribe. And also, that's on your, if you're my YouTube, if you're my Facebook at facebook.com/Imakhu, then please come on board and become a fan of the page. So, how is everybody? Wow, what a day. You have these days where you can't even finish all the stuff that you wanted to do, but still you did a lot, but then you still feel like, I could have just done this and squeezed this in, but it's okay. I'm learning to be more forgiving of myself. Hope that you're forgiving of yourself as well. And, we are getting through this heat wave. By the way, did y'all see my hall pass? Doing this the wrong way here. Okay. Last night, I was so exhausted when I got home. I was at the Newark Museum of Art, and they showed Eve's Bayou. Ooh, child. That is one of oh God, I think it's my all-time favorite movie. When it came out in 1997, I was just on fire. I was so excited because it all related so much to in so many different ways, related to my life, but especially with the character Moselle, who would be able to read people. Give me your hands. I mentioned this last week because the fact that when I have that skin-to-skin contact with people, then I'm able to read them. But then also when people come to me for some guidance, I would say, give me your hands. And, the same way the imagery was depicted in Eve's Bayou, that's the same way that things will come to me. And I was so excited. I was like, wow, how did this filmmaker know? So Casey Lemons was there last night after the showing, and it was the director's cut. Oh, what a difference. It's already a phenomenal film in terms of content, in terms of the directing, the cinematography, the storytelling, everything, the script, everything, and the relatability of it. But the director's cut, when you get to see what was left on the cutting room floor because producers didn't want it and they didn't get it. Oh, wow. Reverend Tamu, peace and joy to you. Give thanks and praise. Yeah, what a difference. You got to see the director's cut. Annie Frederick, thank you so much for being here. Peace and blessings to you. So, director's cut or no? I got to ask Casey Lemons up close and personal after it was all over. And I asked her, how did you know? How did you know, to have Moselle do this and the way that she saw things? And she said that she really did. It just kind of came to her. She didn't know. And it was based on her aunt, who was really a seer. But that wasn't the way that she would connect with people. But she said that something just guided her to have Moselle do like this. And I said, that's the key. That's exactly what, yes. And then the other thrilling part for me, there are a couple of thrilling parts in the movie. If you have not seen Eve's Bayou, which has now become not only a Black classic, but just a classic film in general, do yourself a favor and see this. There are a lot of very sensitive topics in it. I will be honest with you. There are some things that can trigger various people. If you've been through domestic violence, if you've been through molestation, well, I don't want to give too much of it away, but and that's also why you should see the director's cut. Oh my goodness. Anyway, do yourself a favor and see this film. Yes. And it's one of those where you have to go back and watch it over and over again, because there are layers upon layers upon layers. It's so Kemetic. And even yesterday, even though I've seen this film, I don't know how many times over the years. Again, imagine this came out in 1997. Last night, I'm sitting at the theater inside the museum, and I had my glasses on. I had two different sunglasses with me because I told you I'm photosensitive, and so I can't even really go to the movies like that. But I was able to get through this yesterday, and I'm still seizure free. A year seizure free, first time in my life. But I saw so many things. There were so many nuances that I had not picked up on before. I was like, oh, wow, look at that in terms of the storytelling, all these little details that actually add up to a lot of details. And then, of course, there's one of my all-time favorites, Diane Carroll. I love Diane Carroll. Rest in peace. May she rest in peace. I remember sitting in the movie theater with my then soon-to-be fiance. Yeah, we had a really interesting date that night too. Anyway, and I'm just enthralled with the movie. I'm just completely enthralled, and then all of a sudden, who pops up on the screen? Diane Carroll. Oh my goodness! And she had cascarilla on her face. You know, she was like a hoodoo swamp witch, right? And I'm sitting there, as I said, "That's Diane Carroll." I was so thrilled. You know, it's like this woman can do anything. So that's why I wasn't on last night. By the time I got in, it was late, but I made sure to get my picture with Casey Lemons so y'all could see I had a legitimate excuse. That was my hall pass, okay? In fact, I had told her I'm supposed to be on the air live right now. So here we are tonight. Thank you for that, Reverend Tamu. Click the like button, y'all. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, it does help the channel to be seen more. And I have to tell you also, because the fact that I'm not like an insider, and because I have information that's very enlightening and empowering, you know, people can fool around with your numbers. They can suppress, you know. But like I said, I did see something interesting in the fact that even though I couldn't see who was on and people didn't seem to have a chance to respond, the numbers were like, at least on Facebook. You know, I looked and I was like, wow, really? So give thanks for getting back up to where we were, and we're going to just keep on moving. So let's get into tonight's topic. Oh, gosh, I forgot my... We're just going to call in Beset and Besu, and very grateful for the energy that they bring in opening the way and ask them to open the way safely and to bring us through safely as we embark upon this session, which is not going to be too long, and open ourselves up to divine wisdom. Duau. And I must say, when I could not find this, I made a plea to two of the Necharu, Enpu, who is the finder of lost objects, and Besu, who also will find things. And I have a very special relationship with the Fae. They take things from me. And also, when I'm ready, they return it. Some of you have had experiences with Fae. I'm sure you can relate to that. If you have, drop it in the chat. All right. You see, I think I covered everything. It seems like there was something else I was... Oh, yes. Well, I'll save that for another night. There was an incident that happened that got me so upset. But we'll talk about that perhaps tomorrow. So it's kind of sideways tied in with tonight's topic. Tonight we'll be talking about how Kemites regarded ableism and ageism. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, um, for those of you who are not familiar with what ableism is, it is when people show or situations show favoritism to people who do not have challenges. For instance, um, at the movie yesterday, there was a question and answer, which was fine, which I expected. The problem is, and actually this goes along with the ageism factor too, but mainly this was an ableism thing. They had the microphone set up down at the end of the aisles. Well, actually, it was the top of the aisles, which were toward the stage. And so they said, okay, well, we don't have a lot of time. And so people can make their ways to the microphones. And who got there first? Boom, all the young able-bodied people. And, I would have been able to zip up there, except in truth, there was a woman who had a lot of physical challenges. Okay. And so she was having difficulty getting up. She had a cane and she was having trouble walking. And I remember when she sat down, she had a lot of difficulty making her way to the seat. So now, just because I want to ask a question, she had to get up, and I felt bad. And I was like, it's okay, it's okay. There are too many people at the mic anyway. But she insisted, no, no, no. And I didn't want her to feel like I was trying to diminish her because of the fact that I couldn't get down the aisle. It was nothing to do with that. It had nothing to do with that. I really thought about how in that moment, how she must have felt, because it was hard enough for her to get in the chair, and so for anybody else who had difficulty with challenges, they couldn't even get to the microphone, right? So who got to ask the questions? All the young people. And then time ran over, and so the person before me got up to the mic, and it was, that was it. But that was okay. Like I said, I got to talk to Casey Lemons afterwards in person. But still, I said, you know what? This whole ableist thing, this ableism issue is just everywhere. And ageism, because you have people who were older there too, who looked like they wanted to get up, but they were like, well, I'll just sit here. So clearly accommodations were not made. And in fact, I needed to bring that up when I called the museum today. I called them earlier today. I did intend to address that issue, but I ended up dealing with the fact that in their Kemetic, ancient Egyptian exhibition, number one, they have it in the Mediterranean room. Number two, and there's a whole Africa section. Like, why isn't it over with the Africa section? And the other thing was, I've been telling you all for 5 years that you have two items mislabeled. Okay, they're little items too. There's a little amulet of Besu, about this big. Its craftsmanship is amazing. It's beautiful. And I believe it's a tetnot. I'm trying to remember. I'm going to go to the museum tomorrow just so I can take a picture of it, so I can send it to the curator, who did call me. I left a message and explained what the situation was. She called me back. She was embarrassed, and I'm saying, well, this is going on, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and why isn't this moved over here, and blah blah blah. And she was like, you're right. I don't know why it's not in the Africa room, but she said, so tell me what they are again. And so I said it's an amulet of Bes or Besu, and so she completely was just like, I don't know what that is. What? And the other thing I told her, and I had to explain, and she was just like, I don't know what these are. I said, don't you have somebody, to deal with this? And she said, we don't have a curator for the Egyptian antiquities. How are you a museum and you don't have a curator for this? Okay, so all y'all New Yorkers, those of you who are history buffs, especially if you are Black history buffs, then make it your business to voice your concerns about the fact that there is no curator for the Egyptian antiquities. Okay. And I also let her know, by the way, I'm going to make sure that we are going to follow through with this for an organization that I head up. I'll share that with you another day. And it deals with African culture. But I said going to make an issue of this until it is resolved. I just want to let you know. So I also told her, when I spoke there in 2019, it was a Mother's Day event. And they wanted me to come in and speak on ancient Kemetic wellness practices that were used then and used today. And if I could base it off of anything that was in the exhibition that they have in the museum, and also the things that they may have at the gift shop, no problem. And I told the woman, quite frankly, your exhibition is not big, but I've seen some of the things swapped out over the years. And that very first time when I was asked to go in and take a look, I was floored by something that they had that I had not seen anywhere before, and was so very thrilled to see that it was here at the Newark Museum and to see it in person. Wow. Okay. So, anyway, I did a PowerPoint presentation, and I did it twice that day when they had the whole special Mother's Day thing going on. It was a wellness day for mom. And so by the time I finished each of my presentations, the docents who were there came to me and said, wow, we're being lied to. They said they learned so much just from watching my presentation. But also they found out that they were highly misinformed about a number of things. Do you know that some supervisor had the nerve to tell them that the Tetnot was an ancient Kemetic microphone? Okay. Okay. So, but it's ironic that one of the symbols that they had mislabeled was of Besu. And because I'm going to be talking about him today, and the issue of ableism. Let me pull this one image up that I found the other day, because it's not just dealing with him, but also with Ptah and the Dwa people, and the misperceptions that we have been given about what being challenged is. And also we're finding that there are, excuse me as I just get comfortable, and I know y'all have seen me in this before, but listen, if I had a bathrobe, this would be I happen to love this particular caftan. It's comfortable. Yeah. I bought it to wear out, but it just feels so good. And, I came in, got changed, and, threw this on. So anyway. The Dwa people of Kemet, well, not just of Kemet, but of Nubia, because it was believed that a great deal of the association with the Dwa people actually came from Besu and his origin in well, not just in Nubia, but other parts of the motherland as well. However, it's also believed that they are the people of the stars. So this is Ptah. This is an image of the Dwa people, or a Dwa person, in particular of the Dwa individual known as Ptah. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are saying, Ptah don't look like that. In fact, I have imagery for all this stuff, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time looking for it right now. I'm just going to grab images and um, let you see from the imagery, because you're familiar with Ptah. I know you are. Oh, here's a nice graphic. Oh, it's too small. But if you have seen the Oscar statuette, you've seen Ptah. Ah, great graphic right here. Okay, let me see if it will let me upload. Now, what does Ptah have to do with Besu? I bought this keyboard so it would be silent, because it's the other one you hear the clicking. And I have it sitting right here in front of me, and I keep doing this reaching thing. There's Ptah. This is the way people are familiar with him. And you see he is holding in the center image, as we talked in the last video about power symbols, in both the center and also actually in all of the images, you see him holding a wasp staff. But it is also connected to the Jed pillar, which represents the spine. It represents the column of a building, but it also represents energetic power of a battery. In the center, he has the wasp staff, which is facing you. So, like if it were sideways, you could tell better. But he also has the Ankh, and then the Jed pillar. And so what's interesting also? Look at what he's wearing. It looks almost like scales. So I told you before when we were talking about Hekau that a powerful combination was Sekhmet, Ptah, Nefertum. Sekhmet is mated to Ptah. Sekhmet is fire and purification, and she raises the building. She knocks down the building, and also is responsible for the cleanup of it. But then she's making the way for the stability of Ptah, who is the foundation of a building and the pillars and the cornerstones. Okay, everything that keeps a building up and sturdy, that is Ptah. But that's also in your life. He represents the spine. He represents the skeletal system. He represents everything that keeps you upright. And from a moral standpoint, he represents high ethics, because living from a highly ethical and moral place, then you're able to conduct yourself as an upright being. You see, someone who is morally upright. That is Ptah. But because he is associated with this, and you see it's sort of a similar helmet, if you will, or cap on his head. If these two are the same individuals, what does that make him? A shapeshifter. Someone who is able to transform their energy and become something else. But it also challenges what you believe, because you see, also, people would rather have this image, right? They'd rather have that image instead of this one. Why is that? Because we're some doggone prejudiced people. We're cruel. We're heartless. Not all of us, and not all the time, but we're pretty insensitive as a species, and we want things to be so-called pretty. Although amongst people who have challenges and are living amongst each other, then who's pretty, who's really the pretty one. I remember a Twilight Zone episode with Donna Douglas, the woman who went on to play Ellie Mae Clampett, and she was in a world where she was the ugly one. Now, she was a beautiful woman, but in this storyline, she was the ugly one. And everybody that she looked at had these faces that were just like busted. Okay. I mean, they were like really distorted and so forth. And she felt that she was ugly, and they regarded her as being ugly, and she was ashamed of herself, and she wanted to look like them. Then you had another episode where she was also playing this beautiful woman, and there was an average woman, but who was still good looking, who was very happy with the way that she looked. She was a young woman, but her parents were pressuring her mother especially, to look like everybody else. And they had a choice of only two models: this brunette model that was very shapely and beautiful, and the blonde model, which was Donna Douglas, Ellie Mae Clampett. Okay. And so she was pressured and pressured and pressured, and finally she gave in, and she chose the Donna Douglas model. So that was a very strong commentary, both episodes, on how this society views beauty. I mean, it is a matter of perspective. Yet we give in to the preconceived notions that are fed to us. Although I must say, it is very natural for a species to look suspiciously upon something that is supposed to be like them but is not. There are animals that will go ahead and just shove out the weak, the deformed, because they figure that it's like a waste of time to try to nurse, to try to find food for this one that's probably not going to make it, and then also, this is my child. Look how busted this child looks. I ain't claiming that. So the animals have their own survival of the fittest thing going on. But then you have situations where you'll have another animal of another species that will all of a sudden adopt these cast-offs, right? These things happen. Why? Because you're talking about something that's much deeper, and that is dealing with love. So, Besu. Now, let me give you some information about the Dwa people. So these were what were referred to as the little people in Kemet. What we now refer to as the little people, that's the PC term. They used to be called dwarfs or midgets. Those terms are very politically incorrect. So here we have a symbol. And, I just want to tell you also that you'll find this to be extremely familiar, this particular image, because of the feathers that are on top of his head. And there are various versions of Bes or Besu. I'll grab this one right here. Now, children are highly accepting. Children may question a certain thing, but when it comes to dealing with people who are different, they tend to be a lot more tender-hearted about it, about them. And let me just check and see how we're doing here. Brandon, how are you this evening? Blessings. Sister Birdie, how are you? It's good to see you again. Okay. And I want to know if any of you all are living with particular challenges if you are living with loved ones with particular challenges, and how it makes you feel. How it makes others feel. Are you comfortable in your own skin? Do you find that you're being treated fairly? This is an image of Besu. Now, he's always pictured with his tongue sticking out, with the long beard and mustache, and um, usually he's got either like knives because he's a warrior. These little people would hurt you, okay? Now, you see the ostrich feathers that are on top of his head. Now, that reminds you of, oh, let me see if I can find him. In the Disney movie, was that Disney? No, who made, what was that movie? Oh, here we go. Remember this? Oh, yeah, in Madagascar. I like to move it. I like to move it, move it. Let's see. Image. Because the plumage on that character's head was supposed to actually, it was actually supposed to be like based on this. Oh, I can't find any good images. Y'all can look it up, okay? So now, back to my point about children. Now, children tend to be very accepting. And I should say also, last night in Eve's Bayou, the director's cut, it included a character that was cut out of the movie, Uncle Tommy, who was severely disabled and in a wheelchair. And the fact that the producers seemed to feel that it would not be as appealing because there was already so much going on in the storyline, and then to add a disabled uncle to it. However, in ancient, no, not even ancient, in pretty recent times, people, especially people of color, would keep their disabled loved ones at home. Mm-hmm. There was still family. Somebody had to look out for them, and you didn't want them to go into an asylum like people would often do with the relatives that they didn't feel should be looked at. When Barnum created his sideshow, he went looking in a lot of these different asylums because he knew that there were people who were throwaways. Their families just sent them away because they felt that they were too bizarre to be looked at. They brought shame to the family, supposedly. And so he exploited them. Yeah, he paid them, but he exploited them. I mean, that's he got them out of the asylum, but still, he made them objects of ridicule, and they were gawked at. And was it Colonel Tom Thumb? He was a little person who had been acquired, if you will. Barnum went to his family and basically said, look, let me take your little boy. I'll make him a star. He'll make more money than you would ever dream of. And his family, they were like, bet, take him. So he ended up becoming a star, to the point where when Barnum went broke, Tom Thumb, he had the loot to be able to bail him out of his trouble, to get him out of his financial woes. So he got married, I mean, he ended up having he ended up having quite a wonderful life. And I do want to say also, in terms of dealing with little people, the Dwa people, and it's interesting that they were called Dwa because that's spelled T with a diacritical mark underneath it, which gives it a D sound, a soft D sound. Dwa. That's what we say when we say thank you to one another, because it means to elevate, to lift you up. When we say dua or duau, that means thank you, many thanks. Okay, thanks a lot. I'm elevating you. I'm recognizing you and elevating you because of what you did. The Dwa people had the gift of levitation. They were highly mystical. This is why Bes, or Besu, as he's also called, is a door opener. Well, no, he's the one who takes you through the doors. The door opener is Beset, who is the female. Now, they're also known, I'll pull her up in a minute. They're also known to have the gift of being able to attract and find jewels, money. And they were also expert jewelers. They were the Dwa people um, who in other areas of the world were referred to as the Baka, not the same Baka as in Haitian Vodun. No, these were people who were small in stature, who lived in the woods and who lived a very natural lifestyle, and who had the beautiful gift of song and arts, and also would jack you up. But they were respected as politicians. They went into government. They held lofty positions in the king's court. They were advisors to the kings. They were highly regarded. But going back to children, best symbols were placed around children, around their beds. There were best headboards and best stools. Children would drink out of best or besu cups. Mothers would give them milk in these cups if they got sick, because they believed that besu loved children and that he would heal them. Besu also was said to be the reason that children would laugh when nobody else saw anything there, that children actually saw him. So he was considered joyous. He was considered a companion. He was a protector, and he was a healer. But he also would bring wealth to the home. And he, along with Beset, in our tradition, they're the ones who are the openers of the way, who you have at your doorways. This is like Eshu. No, actually, Eshu has to be outside. He is too wild, all right, to be brought in the house. But his cool down essence is a legba or legba. But anyway, you see the connection. Now, let's go back to the shape shifting. People would say that he looks like a combination of a man and an animal. Now, you can't see in this image, but he's usually depicted as being pretty hairy as well. And by the way, I finally got to deal with some more of the tools, so I'm going to be able to do a more perfected projecting of the images up here. Give thanks. So the reason that he looks like part animal and part human is because he's a shapeshifter. So the image of him as a little person with all that hair is showing that he is somewhere between the Leonine version of himself and the human version of himself. This is an extraordinary gift to have if you're a shapeshifter, because then you can make yourself anything. Just like, let's go back to the image here, the suggestion of Ptah with what appears to be scales on his garment. What does that suggest? All right. So, there is a scripture in my all-time favorite Kemetic book. Out of all of the wisdom books, I have to say this is my favorite, is the book of Amenemope, also known as Amen Emopet. And in it speaks against ridiculing a little person, and also about not ridiculing the elderly. Why? Even though I said all these wonderful attributes regarding the little people, the fact is that they were still vulnerable. All right. We've had stories before regarding the whole thing about the Nechuru coming and appearing in human flesh to be able to come and help mankind, and also understand how to best serve or better serve mankind, although usually it would end up being a jacked up situation for them because humans would usually abuse them. So anyway, you have a little person, and just like when you have children and you go out of your way to protect them because they're vulnerable, the little person is also, they're vulnerable. And but beside the vulnerability factor, there is also the um, the thought that you should know better. You should be better than that, than to mock someone else, and especially someone who is different than you are. You should be bigger than that. You should be more mature than that, and you should be more sensitive, compassionate, and caring. Amenem Apet goes on to talk about not only looking out for somebody who is older, an elder, right? Making sure that you accommodate them, and that you're not harsh with them. You're mindful of their age and the fact that they've been on the planet a long time. So you respect just that alone. Not saying that everybody who is older is worthy of respect. I'm just going to be clear on that, okay? I mean, as Dr. Menu Ampim said, there are elders and there are older people. Elders own their years, and they're not trying to replicate and stay stuck in the time of youth. Elders bring wisdom. Elders walk circumspectly. Older people, those are the ones who are hanging out too long in the club with the young people, right? When I go dancing, I like dancing with people my age, okay? Nobody parties like us anyway. We really get down. And it's not from a place of trying to act younger. It's just from a place of vibrancy. And there is a unique thing about the boomer generation, because of the fact that we're old, but we're younger than our parents were. We present younger in so many different ways. However, here's the problem. There are a lot of people who don't get the fact that we're still elders, right? And people will assume that they can just do this, that, and the other and walk all over you. Then there are those who are very clear about the fact that you're an elder, and they're like, I don't care, right? That's, I guess, a further conversation for another day. But there are those who do recognize, I welcome it when a younger person, is in front of me and, holds the door for me. Here you go, ma. All right. All right. I mean, listen, I am the age of somebody's grandmother. I am auntie, right? I'm ma, right? I'm an elder. I am an elder, especially here in the arts community. They recognize me as an elder. Because I'm a queen mother, I'm recognized as an elder. Although at one time I was a very young queen mother. When I was in school, I was only 45. Now it's almost 20 years later, I'm 64. I've finally grown into the title and appreciate the title and appreciate what it means to walk as an elder. But I also know now the discrimination that comes along with it. Yeah. We're vulnerable. We are targeted because of our vulnerability. We are ripped off financially. We deal with the highest level of financial abuse than most in society. Because especially with our generation, listen, we came out of that whole 60s vibe where everything was, we had like it was like a tale of two cities. Okay. On the one hand, we had things kind of definitely warring to make society grow because of all of the prejudices that existed at the time. We still are dealing with prejudice today. I'll get to that. But by the same token, we were expanding into this new era of love and trust, the whole hippie vibe, openness. People would be able to just hitchhike across the country and not have to worry about being picked up and then having their having things happen to them and then them being discarded. So we tend to still operate on that place of trust, even though we're in a different time now. We still hope for the best and still are hoping, and we're just coming from that vibe, right? That shaped a lot of us, right? Freedom, trust. Hey, let's all go on this adventure together. Yeah. Um, and then I've come to find out we can't live there anymore. That's not the world that we live in. And that makes you more prone to victimization, right? So, and on top of that, as a person living with epilepsy and also being neurodivergent, okay, on the spectrum, that's a whole other situation. And the world really, even though it has grown in maturity to a great degree, regarding how people are who are differently abled and who are older are treated still. And as far as, again, the whole thing about we're the new elders, right? But we don't dress like our parents did. We don't dress like our grandparents did. We're still the jean and t-shirt folks. We were the first jean and t-shirt folks, right? But by the same token, we'll rock a lot of the same things. The fashions that y'all have now, they were out when we were young. So yeah, they're familiar to us, and so we still like them, right? And even for those of us who have been in the movement a long time, we've been rocking the dashikis and denims, right? All of that. So it makes it difficult for people to really understand that, yeah, we're still elders. And we still need to have a level of protection from society, from those who abuse us in society, and for everybody who is differently able. Because from the Kemetic perspective, they understood that everyone was created from a place of love. And whoever and whatever they were and are, that this is not an accident. We're here to learn from one another. And there is a Kemetic text, I can't think of where it is right now, but it does talk about the fact that we grow from our differences. It's not intended for everybody to be the same. And that also means that we are able to learn when somebody else has a challenge that maybe we don't understand. I didn't get diagnosed with epilepsy until I was 35. I've been having seizures since I was 5. My mother chose to believe that I was trying to get attention. I had to learn how to live with just having blackout seizures and, having all kinds of tremors and all kinds of things. I have 9 different seizure types, including photosensitivity. I own 9 pairs of sunglasses. No, 7. Okay. They're not just a look. It's for medical purposes because I have photosensitive epilepsy. Now, don't get me wrong. I choose fashionable sunglasses, okay? But, they have different tints for different occasions. And then, of course, I like to match my outfits too. But it's for medical purposes. That's why when I don't go to the movies like that, because I can go and have a seizure, and it's happened a lot because they changed the filming process in how they make movies. One of my favorite pairs. And that has caused people to have seizures, right? But did they announce it? Oh no, they didn't tell anybody. It wasn't until a bunch of people, those of us who were having seizures, and started talking to each other. This is my most out there pair. Start discovering, hey, going to the movies now is a problem because we're having seizures. And so finally it came out that I'm missing 2 pair, that they changed the filming process, and it was something that was not the process was not good for people with seizure disorder. So when I go to the movies, I choose carefully, and sometimes I have to walk out. Yesterday, I got through it just fine. A lot of that has to do also with the health regimen that I've been on, but also I was prepared. Is this fun? No, it's not. When I got diagnosed at 35, the epileptologist told me, because I have photosensitivity, and truthfully, I'm not supposed to spend much time in front of the computer. But he told me, when you leave the house, you always have to have sunglasses. Always. Fun? No. But I look at the blessing of it, because I remember that there are people who would love to be able to at least see. I have a fellow musician friend who was blind. He used to be able to see. And he is one of the most fun people to hang out with. We were dancing together at Juneteenth, okay? I was out after we both finished performing. We sat on each other's sets. And then after that, we just hung out. We were listening to the other artists and having a really great time. And then I went to go kind of socialize a little bit down the road a little bit, because there was a whole slew of vendors. And then when I was making my way back, I ran into his daughter. And I said, "Where's your dad?" And she said, "Oh, he's over there dancing." He was getting down, okay? So I was like, "Oh, let me catch up." So I went over, and the two of us were dancing together, and he has just embraced the fact that he's alive. Okay, he lost his vision. He used to be a martial artist and was a very highly regarded and respected teacher. And he is still very highly regarded and respected, not only as a teacher, but also as a musician, because of his character and the fact that he has just chosen, especially with this, to have a positive outlook. And whatever people think of him, that's their issue. But I know that he also has learned to really stand up for himself, because of people trying to pander to him, people trying to talk down to him, people thinking that he's not able to do whatever. And he is quite able in many different ways. And I find the same thing in dealing with my health challenges. People will either talk to you like you're an idiot, or they start talking really loudly to you, right? Listen, okay, yeah, I do have hearing issues because I'm a musician, all right? I've been a lifelong musician, so yes, I have hearing fluctuations sometimes, all right? And I've lost some hearing, but I can still hear, and saying that I have epilepsy does not, I did not say I'm deaf, okay? Or they start talking to you like you're a child, Or then there are others who are like, "I don't care if there's anything wrong with you." And it's not because they're looking at things from an egalitarian place. They're just basically like, "Listen, I'm about me. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care that you're older than me and you have a problem with your hip and you're trying to get on the bus. I want to go on the bus first. I don't care that you're standing. I'm tired, even though I'm 23 and I'm a male. I don't want to give you my seat." What have we come to in this society? I take public transportation all the time because of the fact that, well, no, I take Uber sometimes. But then also I told you all that I use the paratransit system that they have here to help you get around, because and I qualified because of the fact that I can't drive because I have photosensitive seizures. So I qualified. At first I hated it. I really hated them pulling up to my house and announcing access link has arrived. I'm like, "Oh my God, don't let my neighbors know." Can't you just kind of like slide up to the house and call me, But then I found that actually it's good to do that, okay? And my thing also was, wow, y'all had to send the minivan this time. You had to send the minivan instead of sending the nice little economy car. Not economy, the little sports car looking deal that they have now. that, I mean, I was just like, oh my God, it was a humbling experience. But then I realized I could travel to places that I had not been before because of my health challenges. So now all of a sudden I'm able to start gigging again, getting out there and performing because of the fact that I was able um, um, to travel. So yeah, give thanks. I'm very grateful. And then they have a deal now with Uber and Lyft where they will just send you a private car. I like that. But see, when you're on the little minibus, and you're forced to see other people in their conditions, and sometimes well, all the time, it makes me stop and think, you have a lot to be grateful for, because there will always be somebody worse off than you. And that's not something to celebrate. It's something to humble you. And whenever you deal with somebody who is, or sees someone who is dealing with challenges that are different than yours, that, when you imagine it, you realize, wow, could I live with that? It's an opportunity to open your heart, to open your mind, and also to truly give people credit for the journey that they are on. The Dwa people represent the journey. Beset and Besu. Beset, the portal opener. Besu, who takes you through. Yes, and protects you. Why? Because if you are a spiritual person and you are yielding to faith, you're yielding to a certain level of trust through your Pautnetru, your spiritual crew, you need to have protection, okay? Just like in society, when there are people who are vulnerable, and this does not just include people who are differently abled and people who are elders. This includes everybody who is vulnerable. That means women who are abused, men and women who are abused, okay? Because men experience abuse too. I had a friend, he was in a relationship and he went through it, okay? And it was a same gender relationship, but he was victimized. He was severely victimized. There are all kinds of relationship combinations where abuse occurs. And that means also in families. That means also parent to child. That means child to parent. I've had so many stories I've heard from fellow boomer friends who are really going through the paces because the fact that their children are just so rude and disrespectful to them, and just don't appreciate the sacrifices that they made, and they're blaming them for everything. And we're the generation just sacrifice, but vulnerability. Listen, in the same Kemetic book by Amenem Apetz, he even talks about watching out for the older man who may be filled with beer and might be stumbling on the road. If he falls down, then you pick him up, okay? You don't ridicule him, you don't step over him, you help him up with love, okay? Make sure that he's getting where he's going in a safe way. You look out for him, all right? I'm one of these kind of people that speaks to folk. Well, not everybody. I was going to say I speak to everybody, but I've learned not to speak to everybody anymore. That was one of my downfalls, because I was a little too friendly. And I don't mean friendly like that. I just mean like Pollyanna, everybody, hey, hi, yes, I my times of solitude and loving to be a recluse. I love my house. I do. I love the peace and solitude of my house, where I can have it decorated my way, and I can just do what I want to do. I can eat what I want when I want. I can come and go when I please. And even if I just want to sit here and work for hours, or just sit here and watch YouTube for hours, I can. I love my house, okay? But I'm a very social person too. Even though I was at the movies yesterday, I made sure to find an aisle where I was by myself, at least for a while, because the theater was filling up. And there were seats on the side, but I was like, no, this is not good for me as far as the seizures are concerned. So I need to sit in the middle, further back. And I found a whole aisle that was empty. I was too happy. Then, the woman that was having trouble, she sat over there, and I remember I thought to myself, all right, she's cool. And then an older couple, older than me, sat down at the other end, and I was like, okay, all right. Still, I had all this space. I was so happy. Then these three younger people, they come in making all this noise, and they were just a couple of seats away from me, and I was sitting there just like, when I go to the movies, I like the whole being by yourself. And I thought about that yesterday, and I'm gonna get back to the topic. When I used to go to the movies with my mom and my stepdad, I remember we would go to the Rialto in Elizabeth. Elizabeth, New Jersey is where I was born. And I spent a lot of my time between Elizabeth, and then I was raised in Kenilworth. Those of you who know the area, but I spent a lot of time in Elizabeth and in Newark because I have family in both cities. So I was just always there. So we went to the movies there. And I remember when we saw Lady Sings the Blues, and that was 1972. Yeah, because it was the same year that Chicago came out. Not Chicago. Liza Minnelli, Cabaret. Yeah. Anyhow, my mom and my stepdad would sit like someplace else, and I would always, they would say, you want to sit with us? And I'd say no. And I would just go and sit someplace by myself in the theater, just so I could be immersed in the whole experience of being in the movies. You know what? I'm really thinking that's so ironic that now I have trouble going to movies because I love movies so much. But anyway, back to the whole thing of speaking to everybody and being more discerning as far as who I choose to speak to. It makes a difference because people who are homeless are vulnerable. Many of them. I mean, they don't have a home, and sometimes they don't have food. Sometimes they're provided with food that they don't like or that they can't even open. Listen, one of the worst things that you can do is put this like canned stuff out in these food shelters. It's okay for some people, but if you have homeless people who come by and looking for food, how are you gonna open it? Most people don't have a can opener. It's better to have things out there that they can easily eat without a whole lot of hassle, because otherwise, in frustration, they'll just take the cans and just leave them on the street. They'll try with hope to find some way to open it, and then you with a rock or whatever, and then nothing, and so they just leave it. One time, I found a bunch that were lined up on the porch because there is a food pantry that's nearby, and somebody evidently got frustrated and was just like, whatever. And then also I find in the park where people also will just leave stuff that is just of no use to them. But the whole thing again about being friendly and respectful to people who are vulnerable. You have to remember, most of these people end up feeling like garbage. They feel disrespected. They feel unworthy, or because you never know the circumstances that people are coming from. You just don't know. I'll see people who seem like they're just like out of their minds, who are just raving and whatever. And you don't know what has gotten that person to that place. They could have lost their whole family. They could have lost their job, all their money, everything they had. You don't know. And then there's some people who are just who are in serious need of care, but either don't know how to get to those resources, or are afraid to take advantage of those resources, or are just not well enough to make that rational decision about going and getting the help that they need. You don't know what has driven somebody to that place where they're at. So it's important to treat people with dignity. There's a man in the neighborhood. He's not on this street, but I always see him out in the vicinity. And he would be out there just talking to himself and, always like really disheveled. He's an older man too. And just like talking out of his head, talking out of his head. And so I, at first, just out of safety, until I got a clue, I got a beat on his energy. I would just pretend I didn't see him, but I would pray. I would pray for the best possible outcome. And it's always good to pray for the best possible outcome for the person, because you don't know if a person's karma has brought them there either. And you don't want to interrupt that karma. You don't want to get in the middle of that karma. You don't want to take on that karma. So you have to respect that. And so if the best possible circumstance is for them to get a lesson from this, and this is not true of everybody, okay? I'm just saying, that's why I pray the way that I do, because you don't know. If it is meant for this person to go through this experience so they can get that lesson, maybe they dissed somebody, maybe they ended up having this high-powered job where they ended up throwing somebody out and made them homeless. Now it's they've gotten the reversal. You don't know, but you pray for the best possible outcome for that person. So that's what I started doing when I would see this man, because I mean he looked very menacing, and the way he was talking was very threatening. And so, like I said, I just started walking by and I would see him and I would just pray. And then eventually I don't know, maybe something in his spirit, whatever. But when I started seeing him after that, he would stop raving. And, so I just went, what's up? Right. And so he'd be like, right back at me. Now he sits there, he raves. I passed him today. I passed him yesterday. He was on another block, and he's sitting on somebody's steps and he's raving and ranting and everything. And he sees me, he's like, how you doing today? And I said, I'm good. How you doing? So it's like that now. Now it is, he just stops. We acknowledge each other. I don't say anything that's ridiculing. I don't, try to engage in the whole thing, what's your story and whatever. Because there were some people I would do that with. And those are the ones who were, we'll save the stories for the con artists. No, let me tell you this one story real quick. I've told this story before about this man who had a fake leg. He had a prosthetic leg. And so he would sit and beg outside these food establishments, and he'd be sitting there on the ground and he'd have his leg propped up right next to him. That was a shtick. That was But the day that I finally asked him, what happened to you? What got you here? Was on the day when he asked me if I could help him get something to eat. And so I was on my way to work. I was living in Philadelphia at the time. And I was on my way to work. And I had just bought some lunch for myself. I bought breakfast for myself, and I bought a lunch for myself for later. And at the time, I was doing the strict vegan thing. So I bought a vegan breakfast sandwich, right? So I said, I don't have any money, but, you're asking for money for food. I can give you what I have here. I can't. Usually I'll stop and go and buy something for somebody, right? If they're really hungry, then I will go and buy them food. If they're complaining because I won't give them the money, then it's like, sorry, no deal. But anyway, I said, I don't have time to go inside, because I got to go catch this train. But, do you want my breakfast sandwich? He said, what is it? So I told him, and then I gave it to him, right? He looked at it and he was just like, I don't want this. I said, really? And so I said, what's your story? What got you here? And I mean, because it was frustrating. One time also, I was outside and there was a woman who was homeless. And I was down to my last until my paycheck, right? But I had change in my pocket. And I coupled a dollar, and then I had change in my pocket. So, and I had to make sure I had enough to get on the subway in order to get home. But this woman was there. She was homeless, and she's on this bench. And she was like, sis, can you help me out? So I gave her my last dollar. And so there was a man who was on another bench nearby. And he was like, sis, what about me? What about me? I need help. So all I had were 2 quarters left. And I gave them to him. He was like, what the hell is this? He threw them back at me. I was like, oh, see, lesson learned. Lesson learned. So you have to be careful with each situation, but still, bottom line, I know that there's an underlying cause for everything. We were protesting today, People's Organization for Progress, not protesting, we were commemorating the um, Newark Uprising, what's known as the Newark Rebellion. And because it took place in 1967, where there were uprisings all over the country. This was after we lost Dr. King. And so we were doing a very solemn ceremony. We're out there with our signs, and um, um, the names were read of those who died. We were there at the commemorative spot in Newark, recognizing the place where the rebellion had begun. There were people who were with us who were alive during that time. Well, I was alive during that time too, but I wasn't living in Newark, but who were in Newark and who experienced it. And so, they were recalling what it was like, and so on and so forth. And so then also, Brother Chairman Lawrence Ham, he called up our councilwoman at large, Louise Roundtree. Usually she would pray and do a consecration, to bless the area. But she gets on the mic, and somebody comes by in the car talking about, y'all ain't, y'all ain't belong to Newark. Y'all don't live here. Why don't y'all deal with the garbage? First of all, a lot of us who were there are Newarkers. All right, we live here, and he's complaining about, why don't you clean up the garbage? And ironically, the councilwoman had made sure to have that patch of land cleaned up for the commemoration, because it turned out that it had turned into a little mini dumping ground, needle park, or whatever. But people will always find a reason to complain. Here's the thing, though, that impressed me. Because even though she said, I'm on the microphone, I can talk louder than you, and she was saying, you can't tell us we're not Newarkers, right? And she was like, I grew up in Newark. I grew up on this street, and I live in Newark, and, blah, blah, blah. And, but she was saying that we should keep in mind that when people act out in that way, that there is an underlying cause that we don't know. And so there should be a certain level of compassion for somebody who was a young person just screaming out the window all these obscenities and negative things to us when we're trying to have a commemoration for the people who died in the rebellion. You don't know. You don't know what causes people pain. So here we are again talking about the challenges that we have in our various ways in society. That can be mentally, it can be physically, and then also spiritually as well. So for those of you who live with challenges, first of all, how are you doing? You all right? Everything good? Do you know that this is the 34th anniversary? Well, July 26th specifically will mark the 34th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was signed into law by former President George H.W. Bush in 1990. Now, before I go any further, I should tell you that this is something that I received from my monthly newsletter from the disability organization that I belong to. It's a Center for Independent Living, which helps people who are living with challenges so that we're able to live independently, with things, with a resource for help if we need it. It's not an agency that coddles you, but it is one that is sensitive to you and helps you to pick up the pieces in the places where you need them to be picked up. So, yeah, I'm very, very grateful. A friend finally, she kept this treasure to herself. It wasn't until last year she finally told me about Dial. But I'm glad I know now. So, anyway, so this came in the mail for me, and we always get we have a monthly meeting. I always go and make sure we're aware of the different activities, but also about the different things that you can do to help to enhance your life, even though you're living with challenges. So this was a reminder about the ADA. And, this society is still learning to be ADA compliant in so many ways. I went before the city council a couple of times and talked about the fact that the building, city hall itself, was not in compliance because of a flickering light that was messing with me and people like me, um, up on a particular floor. And it's been that way for a while. Y'all need to do something about that because it can trigger a seizure, right? They handled that. That I also said that, for people who lip read, because occasionally I have to rely on lip reading because my hearing, like I said, it's in and out. It's a weird thing, but I learned to start relying on lip reading to compensate. So if you can't see people's faces on the screen at these city council meetings, then what do? And they don't have anybody doing sign language interpretation. They don't have anybody. They don't have anything with the captions. So I brought all of this to their awareness so that they would take a look at that. And since then, people in the city have been basically acknowledging, like, hey, because I also said, what about the fact that you really probably need to have more people who are living with challenges, who are part of the employment force here in the city, who work under the under the umbrella of the city, city hall, our government. So now there have been other people who, I guess people were thinking about, like, hey, wait a minute, and so now they've been speaking out about certain things. The main reason that propelled me to go and speak before them was because many of you know that I was doing empowerment programming at one of our local libraries all year. And there were 2 times when the elevator broke. The programs were up on the 2nd floor in the community room. So not having an elevator, a working elevator for people who have challenges and who are elderly, is not in compliance with the ADA Act. So I had to go to the main branch and say something, okay, this is 2 times now. And no, I'm not going to ask people with challenges and who are elderly to walk up a flight of steps for this program when the elevator should not keep breaking all the time. And so I said, you're not in compliance. And so they moved the program to the main library where the elevator was working, and so that they wouldn't have to deal with the accusation of noncompliance. They started working on the whole thing about the elevator constantly breaking. It's like, get the parts. It's an old elevator, yeah, but either replace the elevator or find some parts. But anyway, you have the right to demand public spaces to be ADA compliant, to show sensitivity toward your challenge. A flickering light should not be in a public place. Okay? Because see, then if you end up having a seizure or stroking out because your body just all of a sudden is like, this is too much, you just overload, then you can sue. You can. Give the place a chance to get in compliance. Go and identify what the issue is. So ADA is divided into 5 titles: employment, public services, public accommodations, telecommunications, and then miscellaneous. Go online and look up the ADA Act, find out the specifics of them, and also what you can do to speak up for yourself. Now, as a person who is neurodivergent, I shared with you all at some point, I think last year, that, as I was going through various legal challenges and I needed a lawyer and I couldn't find a lawyer, to represent me in terms of severing my relationship. And I found out that I was entitled to have an attorney because from an ADA standpoint, my rights were being violated. Once I found that out, and I wrote a letter to the judge and said that I'm being, my rights are being disrespected, and I need to have time to find both an attorney and also to find a what do you call it? Somebody who's the person who, an advocate, an official advocate who can come and be with me in court. The judge stopped everything. And this is after I'd been going through hell. Years of hell, no representation, being dragged, okay, being disrespected. As soon as I found out my rights and spoke up for myself, everything changed. Everything. And I was able to get a lawyer. First, I got an advocate, and then she was able to recommend a lawyer to me, and turnkey, everything after that was simple, just fell in line. Because I did not see, I finally found out that I had rights. When you know, that's when you have power. Knowledge truly is power. And see, many courts count on people with challenges not knowing, right? This is also on your workplace. You have the right to ask for things to come into compliance and for people to accommodate your challenge. You have that right. Okay. Let me look here in the chat. Wyatt Blue says, yes, I'm dealing with getting situated in a new place. Oh, Lord. We're going to deal with tenant landlord in a... This is why I'm focusing on getting my own. Anyway, we're going to save that for another day. When you know your rights, situated in a new place and factoring in, I'm always considered to be a formal example, but my gift and progression usually resides in eloquent approach. I need you to break that down for us. What do you mean? There are biblical legends when those who were being tested as priests were sent into the temple and were only considered to be the truth if they walked out on their own fruition and not pulled out. Well, see, that's true too. In ancient Kemet, wow. See, in Kemet, they would lock you in a coffin, put you in a sarcophagus, and you had to have the serious juice, the metaphysical skills to get out of a sealed coffin. I ain't trying to do that. I got skills with a lot of things, but I am not trying to be tested in that way, okay? But see, here's the other thing. I shared the story of Amsu with you all, Menu, in the video that I did regarding the true symbolism behind Drake's owl, which he took from the Kemetic letter M, which is symbolized by the owl. Exact same drawing, same, except for his has wide eyes. I broke that down too. But anyway, I talked about Min or Minu or Menu or Amsu, and how he actually is a nature who also represents honoring those who are challenged. And he was maimed. He was called on by this Kemetic king to come down and guard the women as the men went off to war. And he did. 2 years later, they came back and they found all these little Amsus or Mins or Menus running around. And the men thought that Amsu was just helping himself to the goodies. Their pride was injured and they chopped. Okay, so you know what? I'm trying to get used to this whole thing with the standards that they've created in YouTube, you know, because I'm seeing people saying, oh, he was unalived. I mean, okay. So they removed his, he experienced amputation. Okay. Forceful amputation, because they were so angry they didn't understand what he was trying to do. They pitched him out of the village. Now he's maimed. Okay, he's still a god in the flesh, but he's maimed. There were a lot of stories with the gods and goddesses who come down in the flesh, and then something happens because humans don't understand them, so they end up just, you know, doing something to maim them, hurt them, ostracize them. In this situation, 20 years went by, or 25 years went by, and the warriors that they had slain in battle, well, they had had children. Um, before they were slain, these children grew up to be warriors and came back to avenge their fathers. And the men who originally fought were too old, but not the children of Menu, because they were demigods. And it was at that point they realized what it was that Menu was trying to do: seed for the future. But by that time, they jacked him up. So it's said, and according to various African traditions, that people who are born with challenges or who come into a place of living with challenges actually have a special blessing upon them and a special anointing upon them, because of the fact that you're given or acquire or hone gifts that the average person perhaps cannot. In the story yesterday with Eve's Bayou, Uncle Tommy, who's confined to a wheelchair, the fact that he was left out of that story, it basically was just like how people will throw away the differently abled in society. But the thing is, with that character, he was the one who knew everything, because he saw everything. He saw everything. So he was like the pivotal character, and people were completely unaware of that because the fact that his character was cut out of the movie. When you ask people with spectrum challenges what their superpower is, like I saw a thread on Facebook in one of the groups I belong to, it said, what one word would you attribute to living on the spectrum? And there were many who said superpower and gifted. I had someone tell me when I this was just a couple of years ago, people I went to school with and had known me ever since we were small. We did. Anyway, I've had some people since we've gotten out of high school, and now we're like adults, and felt as though they could talk freely. And it was always, you're always so nice, but I was always intimidated by you, or a little scared of you, because you were always so freakishly smart. You don't quite know how to take that, right? And on the other hand, you do. And I explained, well, I'm on the spectrum. Yeah. But then you start rewinding in this tape in your head, so how okay. But give thanks and praise. It is a superpower. And without it, I wouldn't be able to do these presentations for you. I wouldn't be able to do the studying that I do. I wouldn't be able to do all that I do. I'm grateful that my mother at least honed my intellect. Okay, she ignored the seizures, but she honed the intellect that in me and my sister. She taught us to love learning. She taught us to love reading books. She bought us books. She bought us encyclopedias. She bought us anything that's going to help us to really advance ourselves and to learn. She taught us critical thinking. She taught us to love documentaries and to love our culture and fine arts, and to try different foods, and to really expand your mind. I wish that the 12-year-old me had the wisdom and knowledge of the 64-year-old me for when we went to Venezuela, because I just felt so completely intimidated. But by the same token, I was floored by the beauty of Margarita Island, and overwhelmed by the cityness of Caracas, But still, the fact is, we went to Venezuela, my uncle had a travel club, a Black travel club. It's called the Black Sojourners, and there was always a winter trip. We went skiing up in um, were we in Toronto? No, we were in Montreal. Yeah, we were in Montreal. Um, so there was a ski trip every winter, and in the summer there was always a warm weather trip. So what a blessing! What a blessing! My cousins and I would go, and so again, balancing things out. Okay, my seizures were ignored, but my mind was not. Hi, I just subbed. I'm 53 from Pittsburgh. Does natural sunlight trigger your condition? Well, if it's too strong, thank you for that question. If it's too strong, it is especially triggering if the light is filtering through leaves on a tree, because it has the same effect as a strobe. So that's why I took myself off the road in 2005. Peace and blessings, Brother Deshaun. Head tap, head tap. Yeah, I took myself off the road because it was the responsible thing to do. Because when I did have car accidents, it was because I blacked out. It's a miracle I'm still here. And my epileptologist, he could have yanked my license, but he just told me to be responsible. He said, if you're stressed out, don't get behind the wheel. If you feel a little out of it, don't get behind the wheel. He just told you have to be extremely sensitive to what's happening with your body. And it has taken me all these years to finally get it. This month, I'm finally a year seizure free for the first time in my life. We'll do another show about holistics. I talk about it sometimes. In the last one, I talked about some holistics that I got from my friend Monique Smith. Go back and see what I got. The last video, it's up in the toward the front, and how beneficial it is to use holistics. And truthfully, now I hope that I don't end up having my information suppressed because of this. But I basically ruined my life with a lot of bad decisions because of the pharmaceuticals I was on for the epilepsy. I mean, I'm talking about medical pharmaceuticals. I mean, it's bad thing, very bad thing for me. I'm not telling people to get rid of their medication. I'm just saying for me. Okay. I found holistic equivalents that this time are doing the trick. This month, a year seizure free. Give thanks. But yes, very bright sunlight. I actually have a whole lighting kit. I have a professional light kit that, technically speaking, I should be using, because otherwise, right now, this gives the impression that I've got like either dark circles or baggy eyes or whatever. When like, see, if I shift, then it's different, right? If I shift the angle, but my eyes have a hard time with it. I had to shift out the light that was in the kits in my lighting to softer light, and I've got to find some even softer bulbs. So it's ironic because I put money into having good lighting and getting a good camera, and right now I need to not use it, for my own well-being. But as an artist, that's what I was like, I got to readdress this thing. I'm not one that's able to stare into the sunlight. I've taken to walking with an umbrella, or called a parasol, so that I'm able to get the sun off of me when it's extremely bright. So, yes, thank you for asking that question. Waya Blue says Waya Blue says we are grateful and thankful for every comprehensive lesson, Miss Mother. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I want to show you one more thing. And I want to explain the difference in the philosophy from in the Kemetic tradition. This is my AI rendering of Heket and Kenemu, or otherwise known as Khnum. Heket, or also known as Heketet, is usually depicted as a frog-headed female, and also the frog image itself is used that's associated with her, and she is birth and rebirth. The symbol of the frog was an early Christian symbol that they adopted, and in fact, the word wuchem and wuchem ankh means to relive life or to be born again. The frog is associated with that symbol, and she is paired with Kenum or Kenemu, who was the original nature who sat at the potter's wheel and created life from clay. He was first. Here's an ancient image. On the left, you see Kenemu, and he is depicted as a man with a ram's head. You see, that's on the left-hand side. And he has created a little human form that is sitting up on his pottery wheel. And then you have Heket, who is feeding him life with the Ankh. She is the one that gives the breath. So he creates, she gives the breath. And you see she is also holding the Hech symbol, the symbol that represents the measuring life. Okay? Well, measuring in general, but in this case, it is measuring life and determining the years of and destiny of a being. So they came first, and they are, you know, when you think of Kanun, you think of, for those of you who are familiar with African tradition, you think of Obatala, who is the king of the white cloth, and who also was known for creating humans and beings in general from clay. Now, in his pataki, or story, in the Orisha traditions, there are a couple versions, but I'm going to give you the one. So he's commissioned by the great god, Oldumare, to create life on the planet. You know, he has come down from heaven, and he is here, and he is set about the task of populating the earth, okay, creating species and all of that. So he sets about his task. He starts creating humans. You know, he's creating these perfect beings. Everybody's coming out balanced and beautiful looking. And Eshu comes along. Y'all know whenever Eshu shows up on the scene, you gotta, for those of you who know African tradition, you know you gotta watch out, because Eshu's always got some tricks up his sleeve, and his job is to challenge you. So he says to Obatala, "Wow, man, you did such a good job of making all these humans, but you're working so hard. Why don't you take a break? Just take a break, you know, sit under the palm tree and just have a little palm wine with me." And Obatala said, no, I gotta keep working. And he was like, "Man, you can take a break. Come on, sit down. Come on, let's chill. Have some palm wine with me." So Obatala gives in. He sits down, he starts chilling, and he's drinking and sipping and drinking and sipping. And next thing you know, he's passed out. When he comes to, Eshu is gone. But he's still hungover, right? And so he starts making all these beings, right? But now, and then finally he passes, he just fully passes out, right? He comes to, he's sober, and he looks up and he sees all of these differently abled beings that he's created. This one's got one arm, this one's got one leg, this one's got no hand, this one's got 3 eyes, this one's too tall, this one's a little short, you know. So he was horrified. And now in the story, he considered his creations to be imperfect. But he, even as an Orisha, had to get the lesson. And Oldumare told him, "Well, you made them. you take care of them. So that caused Obatala to start truly caring for these individuals that he created who were less than perfect, and to understand that, yes, because he created them and they were vulnerable, that they needed to come under his protection, but also to see ultimately the beauty in each and every creature that he created. That was his lesson. And that was why Olodumare told him, you made him, you take care of him. He still had a lesson to learn. So for those of us who have challenges, it is said, well, actually it's said in the Orisha traditions that all children are under the umbrella of Olodumare, no, I'm sorry, of Obatala and also Yamaja. But specifically for people who are born with challenges, you automatically come under the umbrella of Obatala. What does this have to do with the Kemetic tradition? So the closest, not closest, no. Let me rephrase that. Kenemu, or Kenum, who is the one who creates life from the potter's wheel, creating from clay, right? His perspective, being the wise one that he was and is, I created all these consciously. It's not that he was drunk, and by the way, it said with Obatala that there's a taboo that you should not drink palm wine. Some believe that you should drink no alcohol if you are Obatala, if you are like a child of Obatala, but it depends. So, but definitely the taboo is not to drink palm wine, because that's specifically what he got drunk off of. But anyway, but back to Kenemu. Now, Kenemu or Kenum actually loves a good drink. He loves wine. He loves to party. He loves a good time. One of his praise names is, he who brings joy. He loves the passion of life. He loves sex and sensuality. He loves music. He loves finger popping. He, in fact, in the story where the king, Joseph, some say Desher, it means holy. And he had shirked on his responsibilities in bringing offerings to Kenemu, and people in Kemet were suffering as a result. There was no water for 7 years, and that caused a famine. And so this is from the famine stela. Y'all who followed me, you've heard me talk about this before. But he goes to bring this offering, and he finally humbles himself. He brings this offering to Kenemu. And there's great symbolism that's in that too, but that's a story for another time. So he falls into a sleep, and in the dream state, because that's how Kenemu comes to you, in the dream state, he meets Kenemu. But at first, he's just, he's having a good time by himself. He's finger popping. He's just enjoying the music in his head, okay? He's just... He's like, okay, y'all forgot about me down there? I don't need y'all to have a good time. I'm good. I know who I am. And so come on, hey, So anyway, he is about the joy of life. He is about also the inner understanding and compassion of life. He is the builder. He is the connector. And the best way to be able to get people to understand one another is to deal with people who are different. Come to understand them. That doesn't mean you have to be all like this. You can be different, and you can have the agreement to live. One lives here, one lives here. But you understand, each other. You have your differences, and you respect your differences, and that's fine. You're not going to start any kind of wars or anything like that. You just have your peace. I'm here, you're here. Okay. But he understands that by creating things differently, that it'll help the growth of mankind and of the planet in general, you see. So he is an intentional creator. Therefore, it is considered part of his master plan, if you will, for you to have these challenges. And you are a mirror. We are all mirrors to each other and to the world. So when people see you and your challenges, what is reflected from their soul? Is it going to help them to grow? Is it going to help them to stand tall in their own shoes and be a better person? Not like those who would condescend. Are you going to open yourself up to learning? Are you going to learn the challenges of patience? If you're dealing with somebody who has trouble walking, they're on crutches, and you want to hurry up and get somewhere, well, just like my having to be patient with the woman at the end of my aisle who was struggling to get up, it could have been, if I were really rude, where I would just climb over the seat. I'm taking too long. No. If anybody's ever broken their leg, I've done it 3 times, twice on the same leg. Okay. And twice I was having seizures. I came to and my leg was snapped. Okay. But being on crutches, when your mobility is limited, oh my God. The last time I had to get one of those little scooters just to go around inside my house, right? Because it was my sacred space and the dining room and then big kitchen, right? The bedrooms are off, the bedroom and the other room was off, but still I was having trouble just walking around. So I had to get a scooter just to get around inside my own daggone house. You prop your one leg up, the bad leg up on it with the cast, and then you oh my goodness, it was a trip. It was really a trip. But it gave me another appreciation for people who, all right, my leg would heal. Okay, it didn't heal right, but it healed. Okay. Other people have it much worse. What's the lesson? I got mine. I got my lesson. Yes, indeed. Okay. So what was intending to be a very short session ended up being extended. I guess I had a lot more to say about it than I thought. And I hope that this held meaning for you. Please remember that if you are living with challenges, that you have rights. Please also remember, because I'm always stressing this, the importance of wellness overall in body, mind, and spirit. If you are dealing with some serious emotional trauma right now, then there is help available. I mean, I know, like right here in the city of Newark, that there are places where you can go and get therapy for free. I know that there are resources for people to get therapy online too. If that works for you, hey, you just want to make sure that you get the right therapist. That's all I can say. And there is no shame in asking for help. Trust and believe. And always remember that you're always going to find somebody whose situation is worse than yours. Do what you can to be supportive when you can. Do what you can to strengthen yourself and empower yourself through your compassion. Do what you can to strengthen the laws. And we're going through some serious crap right now. Serious crap. Where ageism is on the table and mental wellness is on the table. But beyond that, people's rights. That means for people who are differently abled. And, the notion of having somebody who is in charge who has no respect for people who are differently abled is chilling. We went through it once already. In our ethnicities, in our beliefs, there are people who are very prejudiced against others with different beliefs. That's definitely for another show. I have to get into something that happened recently. But we need to take all of these things into consideration and remember the fact that you have a voice. You can speak up and you can fight. Eri is the symbol that indicates being able to do. It is activated energy. It is the activist. Find that activist in you. That activist in you is willing to protect yourself, your family, and your society, and especially the vulnerable. Any questions? And thank you for saying it. This is a good conversation. I appreciate that. Well, with that, we'll close. And I'm hoping that your tomorrow is going to be excellent. And um, yeah, I've been overbooking myself. I went to the rally earlier, came in with the intention of working, and then all of a sudden had a last minute Zoom meeting for something else that I'm doing. And then tomorrow I'm going. I'm supposed to be at two places at the same time. I'm using my Google Calendar now. My therapist taught me how to use it, so that helps a lot. So anyway, please feel free to reach out. Reasonable hours. Don't text me now. Okay, text me first. That's the best way to get me. Make sure you identify yourself first. If you call or text and don't identify yourself, then I will not return your call. And don't come at me with, hey, just please have respect. I'm not saying you have to bound scraping my feet, but I'm just saying, please don't come at me like, hey, sis, unless I know you like that. All right. Boundaries. I've worked hard to respect my own. So let's respect each other. Okay. All right. It's been my pleasure to be here with you tonight. And as always, we say Meria, which means much love. Heri, which means be at peace. Teni, which means to be accountable. Jebewi, which means the right amount of mercy that is applied to others, but also the appropriate mercy that you would apply to yourself and to those who are vulnerable in society, including our children as well. All right. Meria. And also, Resui Nechem, sweet dreams.